We're deep in the thick of the Marvel Cinematic Universe's fourth phase, and fans have plenty of complaints. While the movies and shows are still smashing the box office and ratings, Marvel fans are becoming disgruntled with some of what the MCU is doing. She-Hulk is the latest project to divide the fans, and in this video, we'll be looking at the reason why. First off, let's address the giant green monster in the room. She-Hulk had a Sonic the Hedgehog moment. When the first trailer for She-Hulk dropped on YouTube, fans were interested in the continuation of the Hulk story, but the longer they sat with the trailer, the more they started to get bugged by one thing in particular: She-Hulk's appearance. While Tatiana Maslany warrants no complaints in the looks department, she's only contributing her voice to her big green alter ego. She-Hulk herself is a completely CG render. Marvel has done this before with the likes of Rocket Raccoon, Thanos, and even the Incredible Hulk himself, but this is a first for Disney Plus's Marvel shows. Unfortunately, the CG on She-Hulk isn't quite as good as it was on Thanos. When you look at the Hulk, you can only see the faintest trace of Mark Ruffalo in his facial features. That makes sense. Ruffalo's face is a human face that wouldn't work right on a green monster. So why exactly does She-Hulk look like Tatiana Maslany? Her face is obviously plastered on the head of She-Hulk, and it almost looks like Maslany in green face paint. Except if Maslany went through a makeup regimen to get this appearance, it would still look a lot better than this. Makeup artists put a lot of care into letting the natural qualities of skin show through. She-Hulk looks like a video game character from 10 years ago. She's got human features, but they don't interact with the light and environment in the way human features do. Her animation is way off point as well. She's got the weirdest facial expressions, and overall, her face muscles don't move in the way that face muscles usually do. And it's especially shocking to see such CG in a Marvel production. Thanos is often considered one of the best fully CG characters in a live-action film, not to mention the fact that Marvel Studios can make an alien tree thing so human. But they've really dropped the ball here. Of course, there's a massive gap between the budget of Infinity War and Endgame and the budget of Disney Plus shows, but Marvel has set a standard for themselves that they should uphold. Another reason why the She-Hulk CG failure is so surprising is that Bruce Banner's Hulk is in the show too, and while he might not do as much smashing as he did in the Avengers movies, he still looks pretty great from a CG perspective. Now, this does make sense, as animated assets are a one-time investment. Marvel is definitely reusing a lot of the Hulk's animations and stuff from the many movies that he's featured in. The problem is that this very polished Hulk from movies that had hundreds of millions of dollars in the budget is standing beside this very poor execution of She-Hulk. For a lot of fans, this is just another example of budgetary shortfalls in the MCU during Phase 4. Marvel movies are still some of the most expensive productions in Hollywood, but fans have been noticing that the CG in a lot of recent Marvel productions isn't quite up to snuff. Thor: Love and Thunder is getting criticized for that right now. It seems like Marvel Studios is stretching out their budget over way too many projects lately. But don't give up hope just yet. Since She-Hulk is a CG character, Marvel Studios could look at the backlash and tweak her appearance all the way up to the release of the show. Worst case scenario, they can actually take the Sonic the Hedgehog route and delay the release to really fine-tune her look. That seems unlikely. Marvel has scheduled one piece of MCU content for every month, and delaying She-Hulk would mean no MCU for the month of August. One example we've seen of Marvel working on this issue is that when the exact same trailer dropped on the Disney Plus app, the CG had been moderately improved from where it was in the YouTube trailer. It wasn't a massive change, but it shows they're working on it. Marvel Studios hasn't acknowledged the controversy, but honestly, we're not expecting them to. If they're going to fix the CG at all, they'll do it quietly and let the results speak for themselves. We sure hope that these CG issues are addressed because we love us some She-Hulk, and she deserves the best show that Marvel can put on. Also, between Moon Knight, Ms. Marvel, and this show, Marvel has really been using Disney Plus to tell some really offbeat and creative stories. We think that anyone could get behind a show about lawyers in a world of superheroes, so it's really important that She-Hulk succeeds at what it sets out to do. Now, in other news, Jamila Jamil cops some shade over her appearance in She-Hulk. Tatiana Maslany's character isn't the only one whose appearance is being scrutinized. A recent set photo shows Jamila Jamil's villain, Titania, on the show, and the camera seems to have caught her at a bad time. Her hair looks matted, and she's got these weird bangs draping her forehead. Jamil rocks the bangs offset, so it's a little weird that her hairstylist failed her. Or did she? Jamil got on Twitter to acknowledge how bad bad she looked in that particular photo, but defended herself by saying that she was caught at a bad time. The picture was taken after a 14-hour-long day of doing stunts in the summer in Atlanta. It explains a lot, actually, since a 14-hour day of sweating it out would mess up anyone's hair. Jamil finished by reassuring fans that her hair looks better throughout the show and that her stylist was actually really good. We'll take her word for it. Up next, some positive coverage of She-Hulk, the antithesis of most superhero narratives. We've talked a lot about things going wrong with She-Hulk so far, but that doesn't mean that the show doesn't have promise. And now that July's Marvel offering is out, all the focus is shifting to August's release of the show, and we're starting to learn more about what kind of show it is. While most shows see the protagonist get to fulfill their dream of becoming a hero or being thrust into the role by accident, She-Hulk is very different. It places the legal drama aspects of the show front and center, with the detail of Jennifer Walters being a Hulk just being a detail. In an interview with Empire, Maslany talked about the conflict between Jennifer Walters rejecting her superhuman abilities and just wanting to work as a lawyer, which happens to be a male-dominated field too. She-Hulk is just the latest in a string of very experimental shows, with WandaVision experimenting with sitcom tropes, Loki being very character-driven, and Ms. Marvel focusing on generational trauma. Disney Plus seems to be where Marvel Studios tries their most off-the-wall ideas. It's a great contrast from the movies, which have been criticized all over Hollywood for following the so-called MCU formula. This kind of variety is going to be very important as Marvel continues its expansion into a massive franchise. We're really excited to see what a superhero legal drama looks like. This is really uncharted territory for superhero content. But since we're talking about MCU lawyers, finally, could Echo reintroduce Marvel's Netflix characters? Marvel's brief partnership with Netflix left a lot of their best characters stuck in the hands of the streaming giant for many years. Luckily, Marvel has gotten their hands back on these characters and they've started to make inroads back into the MCU. Matt Murdock has had an amazing cameo in Spider-Man: No Way Home already, and Kingpin was revealed to be the villain in the Shadows of the Hawkeye show, but that was just the beginning. These characters may have more profound roles in the 2023 series Echo. That show spins off from Hawkeye and it reveals a connection between the protagonist and Echo. The Hollywood Reporter has all but confirmed that Kingpin and Daredevil will be big parts of Echo, but they're also suggesting that we may see Jessica Jones and Luke Cage again. They won't be the focus of the show, but it looks like Echo may just be Marvel's way to properly reintegrate the Defenders back into the mainstream MCU. No word on what's happening with Iron Fist just yet, though most people probably aren't too concerned with him. Could we see Matt Murdock in She-Hulk? It'd make a lot of sense, but there doesn't seem to be any chatter of the sort yet. With Marvel being so leaky these days and She-Hulk so close on the horizon, it sure feels like if Daredevil was coming back on that show, we'd have heard about it. That's all for today's video. How do you feel about She-Hulk's CG? Is Marvel going to be able to fix it, or is what we see what we're going to get? And if her CG is bad, how much would that affect your viewing experience of the show? Let us know in the comments section below. And don't forget to Hulk smash the like, share, and subscribe buttons.